Hey guys. So, have you ever heard the listing agent say, well, no one, the seller hasn't lived there, so we don't have a seller's disclosure? Okay. A lot of us have said, oh, okay, no problem. Well, how can they disclose something they haven't lived in, right? Well, so here's the question. Are they required to do a seller's property disclosure of any kind if they are investors? If they live in Nevada and they're selling in Georgia? How can they? Well, you might be surprised at what our listing agreements say. And I think it's changed probably in the last 3 years or so. So I'm going to share with you, oops, what the actual listing agreement says, and you might be surprised. All right. So now this is the January of 2026 exclusive seller brokerage engagement agreement. Okay. So you can see this is 2026 printing here. This might change. So this is on YouTube. Who knows? Check your contract. Make sure you check your contract. But as of right now, which is April 16th of 2026, we are using this GAR form, the F-101, dated 1/1/26. And on page, let's see here. I know it's paragraph or section C. Okay. We're going to get to section C. Oh, goodness. I feel like I went right past it. All the compensation, the protected period, what an exclusive seller brokerage engagement is. So that's B. I know it's in C. Here we go. Other terms and conditions. So we're on page 5. Blow this up a little bit so you can see it. Page 5, seller's property disclosure statement. So this is what it states. Georgia law, OCGA 51-6-2 requires that a seller disclose known latent defects in the property which could not be observed by a buyer upon reasonable inspection of the property. This is the case even if the property is sold in as-is condition. Within 3 days of the date of this agreement, the seller agrees to provide broker with a current, fully executed seller's property disclosure statement, either an F301, 304, or 307, or a disclosure of latent defects and fixtures checklist, F302. Now that got added a few years ago, and I think this statement was added at that time, but don't quote me on that. Anyway, broker is hereby authorized to distribute the seller's property disclosure statement to buyers interested in the property. Seller agrees to promptly update any of the above referenced disclosure documents through the closing should any changes occur. So, yes, any investor, any flipper, any guy from Nevada who's trying to sell a property in Georgia or from California who's never even seen the property, they still have to do the F302 at minimum within 3 days of signing their exclusive right to sell listing agreement. So that also means that you, as a buyer's agent, if you're a buyer's agent and the listing agent says, yeah, seller never lived there, so we don't have a disclosure. Well, you can still write in the contract, in the purchase and sale, under special stipulation, seller shall remit to buyer within whatever days of the binding agreement date, usually during due diligence, a fully executed disclosure of latent defects and fixtures checklist, F302. And then I would tell the agent, hey, check your C1 in your listing agreement because you may not realize that that is actually required within 3 days of signing the agreement. And they'll make sure it happens, I'm sure, because, we all want to do the right thing. Another thing that I wanted to talk about too, when it comes to seller's disclosures, let's say you have, a latent defects and fixtures checklist, and there is something found during inspection that maybe the seller didn't know. Okay. So you may decide, man, we're not going to go through with this property. But if you send proof of that latent defect, of the issue that you found during inspection to the listing agent, they have to write it and they have to update it according to this, because it does say the seller agrees to promptly update the above referenced disclosure documents through the closing should any changes occur. So again, that also occurs when, you're on a regular property and you have a regular SPD and you find out that, oh goodness, there is a crack in the basement and it is wider than 1/4 of an inch. And so we may have a real issue here. Or let's say, oh goodness, we have water intrusion in the back left corner, or oh my goodness, we have rotted wood, whatever. We can tell that there was a leak. Whatever it might be, like update listing agents, update your seller's disclosure, make sure your seller is covering themselves. And when they discover these things through inspections, that they go back in and make changes and update the seller's disclosure. Okay, that's all I gotta say. I hope this one helps you in the future. Protect yourself, protect your listing, your sellers, and protect your buyers. If you have any further questions, let me know and have a great day.